So, okay, we're recording. And I guess I've got this list I want to go down here. So the YouTube and Facebook channels, I know some of you already signed up, but YouTube, like I said, is private. You'll get it after today's class, after Zoom finishes with the recording and YouTube finishes with recording, and sometimes that sooner than later. I will send you a link and you'll have access to that forever. The Facebook page, I hope you all get a chance to get over there if you're on Facebook and sign up. It's again a private group, so it'll just ask you to send me a link and I'll approve you. And more importantly than anything else there, we share beautiful pieces of work. And I hope you saw what went up this morning, which is Pat Spencer's gorgeous Cellini spiral necklace. So feel free to post all of your stuff up there so we can drool on it and say how beautiful it is. And if you don't want to post it because you're not on Facebook, send it to me and I will post it so that the rest of us can ooh and ah and hope that our stuff looks that beautiful soon. So do we have any questions before we go to the next step? Okay, so Marcia, I see your beautiful picture, but are you there? You're
Yes.
muted if you're there. I know you have to leave us. So some of you had asked me about tools, and Marcia is our tool expert, and you want to talk a little bit and show us what you have, or before we get involved and then you have to leave?
Yes, it's been kind of a crazy morning, so I'm not totally prepared yet, but I have.
Well, do you want us to give you some time?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I'm kind of yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to set up my computer too and do it that way.
Okay. When do you have to leave by?
Actually, I don't. I have a 1 o'clock City of Hope meeting. So,
okay.
But I might have a City of Hope doctor's call sometime during the day. So I'm not sure. I might have to leave at any time, but that would be a fairly brief meeting.
Okay. Okay. All right. So when you're ready, you just interrupt us and we'll flip it over to you.
Okay.
We always start off each class with show and tell. So do we have any projects that anybody finished up the last 3 weeks that you want to share with us? No show and tell? Were you guys not working on jewelry?
I made my bed.
I'm gonna pin Janice. All right, I'm gonna spotlight Janice. Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Ooh.
A little higher. Can you hold it up a wee bit higher? Oh, wow. Those colors.
Oh, Janice, you did a beautiful job.
Mm-hmm.
You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
You can't hear either.
Okay. So everybody, your easiest way to unmute is to hold down your space bar. While you're talking, it unmutes you and then re-release it. So Janice, you're muted. Can you hold down your space bar? Of course, unless you're on an iPad, then I don't know what you do.
Didn't do it.
Okay. Well, it's pretty.
It is beautiful, Janice.
Very beautiful.
Mm.
You're still muted. Sorry, Janice, we can't
We
hear
know
you.
you're telling us something great, but we can't hear you.
I'm sure there's language coming out of her mouth.
Tap the microphone at the bottom of your screen. There should be a red, you see it's red? Well, tap on it with your mouse, click on the microphone and it'll.
How's that?
There.
Excellent. Oh my God. Too early.
Technology.
A a number 6, and I noticed that makes it a little different in the design in that little V. It doesn't do a defined V like yours did. And I think it's because the beads are smaller.
But it's beautiful.
It
It's
is
gorgeous.
beautiful. I see the bead.
Clasp, that clasp of yours is beautiful. Where'd you get your
Yeah.
clasp?
Yeah.
It's a secret. It's a handmade sterling clasp,
It's what?
handmade.
Oh my God.
That is
Oh.
stunning.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Beautiful.
did you make that?
No, are you kidding? No, not yet.
You are so talented. It wouldn't have surprised me. It wouldn't have surprised me at all. So wonderful. So do we have any other show and tell?
I do.
Okay, Claudia, spotlighting you.
So we did the Kumi Hemo, and so here's the bracelet that I made with the
Wow.
Belinda inspired clasp there.
Beautiful.
And so I had some sections that were bad and completely unusable, but I had other sections that were good. Unfortunately, the bad sections were in between the good section. So I cut it out. Why is it, does it keep, okay, so I cut it out and I cut the pieces and I made all of these links.
Wow. Just a wow.
That's
And-
gorgeous.
And there's
Oh,
the
look at
clasp
that
for
clasp.
it.
Wow.
And so that's how I used my leftover. This is, I call it my leftover Kumi Hemo necklace.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And
Really.
I have the spiral neck. Oh, I haven't done the necklace part of this one yet. The spiral thingy.
Oh,
Very pretty.
Oh,
Very pretty.
oh, I love the colors.
I do too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I'm still debating on this one, how I'm gonna make the necklace part, but eventually. That's it.
Gorgeous,
It is.
gorgeous work. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got some spirals. I
Hey,
think
Diane.
I went crazy on the spirals. You know what the Viking knit was to Yasmin and the paper beads were to Claudia. I think I'm with the spirals. So I found online this thing on how to make the using
Oh, it's very pretty.
Wow.
Very nice.
and so I was playing around with those.
Oh,
The
wow.
problem is I don't know how to finish them. I know, Belinda, I sent you a note, and you told me I would like to put like a double leather cord through it, but I think you said you had used a purchased clasp, but I'm just trying to figure out how I would get a clasp around a leather cord. So maybe sometime when we have extra time, you could go over that. I know you did once before, but anyway, I think these would look good on that.
Right.
And then I made some little guys too. The other one, the other
Beautiful.
line in the blue. And
Wow.
Oh, nice.
You have got.
Right.
Machine.
Crazy.
It's like
Wow.
you're-
they're so much fun.
So
That's
you know
good
what?
for you.
Sometime you and I should get together on a call, like a Zoom call or a FaceTime call or something, because I've also been ruminating on what to do with my spiral thing, and I thought about leather also. So I've been really kind of thinking this through. So you and I should brainstorm on
Yeah,
this.
you know,
'Cause
one
I
thing
do have
I
some
did-
ideas.
My mom had a birthday recently, and I made a black Kumi Hemo necklace with a magnetic closure. And then I made 3 of these little guys to send with it, so she can interchange them. But with these longer ones, I think it needs, you can't really get that through these. And plus, I think a cord would look better, some kind of a cord on these. So
Right.
Yeah, I
But
was
what,
thinking of doing leather on mine too. So that's why I was thinking maybe you and I should brainstorm on this.
why
Oh.
not make the end caps like we've made before, where you just do the wire wrapping around it?
Right, right.
You know, I was looking here, I don't have, of course, I never have what I need right here to show you, but I think at one point we did, or I showed you where I did, where I put moldable, even like moldable cords, leather cords. And what I did is put my painter's tape around the end to secure them. And then I did the wire wrapping and put a little glue in there, but it'll stay on. You're right. Let's either set it, yeah, your confused look says, what the heck is she talking about? So, so let's either set aside time in class and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Or we can do a separate Zoom. And by the way, when we say separate Zoom, if anybody else wants to partake, you just send me an email and we can do it. And I'll show you how to set that up.
Belinda, I would too, because I was thinking of the same thing. This is Nora, and I was thinking of using some leather, and I need instruction also.
Okay, here's what we're going to do then. Our next project is we're going to do the braiding with the wire to make the cord. But on the end, and when I flip over to my other camera, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I did the wire wrapped end caps on that wire, and the same thing can happen on your cord. So I will demonstrate it on cord when we're doing the one on the wire also. So you can see, and then the whole class can see it and decide if it's something you like. So nice job. And Diane, I love it when one of you gets so excited about a project and says, you know, oh, I like doing this. So to me, that's just wonderful. So to me, it says, oh, I hit the right project. Because I always wonder when I design these projects, if you're gonna like them or go, oh, that was kind of boring.
Yeah, you did. And I'll tell you what, it was a real challenge for me. I mean, I couldn't get that step up thing, you know, it took me like an hour to do. I'm exaggerating, but the first couple rows, but then after that, and then it's very Zen-like because you actually have to pay attention to the color bead that you're putting in there. So that's what I like about it. Thank you.
But don't you think it was easier than the peyote itself?
Yes.
Because to me, you do have to pay attention, but you have to just pay attention that you're putting in the color. Where the peyote, you got different things going on. So
Yeah.
I just found it, I like the peyote, but I just found it a little easier. Good. Any other projects we want to share? Any other show and tell? We're good? I'm not seeing anything.
I don't
Okay.
see anybody.
So let's go over to my other camera, and I'm going to talk about the upcoming projects. So let me set it up so we can talk about the upcoming projects and what you need, because some of you've had questions about supplies. So before we plunge ahead, let's talk about those. So today's project is this three circles, and I'm going to talk about how I did this. This is fairly easy. You know, the first project I tried to make so that the new people aren't overwhelmed. So we'll go through this. Some of you have asked me about the twisted wire. This is a pre-made jump ring that I bought at the bead factory. And it's, I bought, you know, they came in a package of like 7 or 8, and I must have bought them a million years ago and hadn't been able to figure out what to do with them. So I thought this was perfect here. I will show you today, for those of you that are new, how to twist the wire if you want to make it yourself. But if not, this could perfectly be made with just a regular wire in there. But the reason I'm going to show you how to twist it, if you want to do that, in fact, in my demo, I will twist one and myself and make the jump ring or the ring from it. But next week's project, or excuse me, not next week's, but in between, we've got this cord going on. But when we get to this project, this is square wire that I used, and this is twisted. with the pin vise. So I'll just show you the technique there. And you can also just do this with square wire by holding on to the wire with your pliers. So if you don't have a pin vise, that, you know, you don't have to run out and buy one, but we'll talk about how to do it. So this is today's project. You should finish it in
Belinda,
class.
you're a little off camera. You're a little off camera on that one. Oh, good.
Thank you.
It's coming into view.
There, good. And mine are separate because I want to show you how to put them together. But yours will go together. And some of you had difficulty finding the jump rings. The jump ring size, it's always hard for me when I write the instructions, because if I don't give you size, some of you, your type A personality, you just start freaking out on me and saying, I can't find a size, I don't know what size. It really doesn't matter on this particular pattern. So those of you that couldn't find the jump rings or didn't know what to do, we'll make our own jump rings today. But all we're doing is just hooking it together with jump rings. And if you're new to jewelry making, even the term jump ring may be confusing to you. So it won't be after today. Next project, I'm looking at my syllabus to make sure I'm not lying with you, is the cord here. And this is a biking technique. So it's mostly made with fibers. In fact, in the biking days, they used this to make a braid that either became a belt or was attached to their garment in some fashion. And I got the idea that let's try it with wire. So, you know, I'm always doing something strange. So we're going to learn to do this. Now, what you need for this, and I suggested and I put it on your syllabus, is that you find yourself some cord. And it doesn't matter what it is. I wouldn't go like, you know, rope, big thick stuff, but, you know, an embroidery floss or a crochet cotton or something that you can see. It's not thin like a sewing thread, but something that you can see, but will also let you practice the stitch, because it's a really easy technique. But you're going to be working with 5 different, when we get to wires, 5 different wires or 5 different cords, and you're going to be using your fingers. So you're going to be putting them on your fingers and weaving through the loops with your fingers, and then stretching it out and tightening up the tension. So I found, you know, after I, of course, jumped in and did it and then said, there's got to be an easier way, that maybe working first until you get the rhythm going with fibers would work. What you also need is some way to secure the end so that you can put the tension on it when you stretch it out. And since I've done both of these, of course, I was doing, you know, the YouTube thing, and a lot of the people are using a vise. I have 3 vices, but I wasn't smart enough to use it originally. So what I did is I just took the ends of the wire and twisted them together and kind of made a big mess and pinned them onto my lace pillow, which those of you that took the lace class with me when we made this little guy, all it is a piece of styrofoam or a boogie board or a kickboard or something that you could pin it into. So how you do it isn't going to be important, but what you need to do is make sure that it's got some tension on it so that when you straighten it out and pull it tight, it's not going to flip back up on you. So I haven't tried it, but I'm thinking even a great big, you know, clip, not a paper clip, but a clip that you would put paper together with, hooked to your board or something, and it can go in there as long as it holds it. So that's going to kind of be your challenge this next week, to see what can you find to hold it down. So either we can pin it to something and secure it, or you can clamp it to something, or if you have a vise that you can get to, anything like that that will hold the end, because we're going to be weaving. So you can use any wire you want. So this was with a 26 gauge wire, and this was with 24 gauge wire. And you notice it's the same technique, same number of wires. The difference is the thickness that it will produce. Quite frankly, I think the 26, well, maybe I'll I wanted to say, I think the 26 is too thin. I don't know. It's not going to take a lot of hard pulling. So if you're, hard on your jewelry, or you make a really long one that might get caught on something, the 26 may not be what you want. If you're going to make like a choker or something that just sets at the neckline of your shirt, it probably won't get caught on anything. 26 will be fine. And 26 is easy to find at Michael's or Joann's in their craft wire. And it's certainly good to practice with. The 24, I like the weight of the 24 a little better for wearable. And my intent is to try it next with 22. And I thought I was going to do that before class today, but the 3 weeks just got away from me. So your choice, what you want to do. We're going to wrap the ends because, well, you can purchase end caps, so you can always purchase, or we will wrap them. And this is what I was talking about with your leather cord. When we wrap this, you can just do that the same way. The only thing you have to do with the leather cord is, if you've got more than one, is secure them so that you can wrap around them. But this was easy. So we'll make the wrap, and we'll make the clasp. And I have a couple of different clasps. I didn't make a fancy clasp here, but you see that Claudia made a couple of fancy. So if you want to do that, we can review that. Here, I just made even simpler than the other one, but I put a little metal bead on it. And I never know exactly how long I want my necklaces to be, and it seems they're never the right length. So if I make it one length, I want it shorter. If I make it another length, I want it longer. So I just added a bunch of jump rings on the end here, so that, if I can get it in there, so that I can make that shorter necklace or make it longer. It's adjustable. So those are the first 3 projects. Then we're going to do some beading, and we're going to either do this one, you can do both certainly, or if you don't like the double, you can do a single, and you could do just a single in the pearls if you wanted. My first one to teach myself the technique and make sure I did it, I just did it with these crystals, which is your option 2 or B that I gave you on your syllabus. And I kind of think that would be nice. I don't want to make 2 of those because it's too big, but I think as a single pendant, it's kind of attractive. I really like this for myself, and you can wear this. I mean, you could make this in any size you want. So if you went with a smaller pearl than what I sent you on the syllabus, you would just have a more delicate look. If you went larger, it'd be bigger. And again, you could change out the center pearls with you could put crystals in there, you could put beads in there, you could put bigger pearls, you could put smaller pearls. It's up to you. And you could just make one, which is an elegant look. So we'll make that, and we'll make the veil for it. And for this, you don't need any wire, but you do need your fire line. So a couple of you had asked me, what is fire line? Fire line is like it is a monofilament fishing line. Get a hold of it here. And you can get this online, or you can get it at, why can I not remember, Dick's Sporting Good. And if you don't know, email me and I'll send you the numbers and everything, or if you can get it off the video, because they make a couple of different fire lines, and some of them are too thick and some of them are treated a different way, and they don't hold up. So this is the one you want to get. And I usually order mine just from Fire Mountain, but Yasmin contacted me at Christmas and said, Dick's is having a big sale on them. So I bought enough to last me and all of you for the next lifetime. And it's good. It's the same stuff. So we checked the numbers and we got it. So that's local for you. And somebody told me, I think last class, that Joann's and Michael's now is selling the fire line. It used to be just Wildfire, but that's the only different thing you're going to need. other than the wire that we were using in class this time. And then the last project, we're going to make a shawl pin, and the thicker the wire, the better to hold it up. So you could use a 16, you could use a 14, you could use a 12. And if you want any of those thicker, like 10, 8, 10, 12, Lowe's and Home Depot have those. You can buy them by the foot for like 19 cents a foot. So it's they look at you kind of strange when you tell them you want a foot of wire, because they're not used to it being used for jewelry, but I'm used to people looking at me like I'm strange. And I really would recommend that whatever you do with this piece that is the pin is as thick as you can get and work on, because it's the part that's going to take the damage if there's damage. So you need your thicker wire. You need the thin wire if you want to wrap it. If you don't want to purchase the thin wire this time, I was going to say you don't need it for any of the projects you do. We're using the 28 or 26 in here when we're doing the weaving on this one. So you can use the same wire on this. And then I used the bead here. You don't have to put a bead there. I just thought that negative space needed something. Same thing here. I was torn when I put this on, because I thought, at first I thought I'd do veins that went up and made it look like a real leaf. And then when I played with it, I thought, oh, the veins take away from the rest of the look. And yet when I left it open, it was too much negative space. So this was my solution. I just put some metal beads in there. You could put crystals, you could put pearls, you could put regular beads. It's totally your design. And if you like the negative space, you could leave it open. So, and you can always put things other places. So if you wanted a bead in here, it's totally your creativity. So do we have any questions on the projects or supplies, or where to get the supplies, or how to get them?
I do on this last project. This is Denise, one of the newcomers. On this thank you. On this last project, what kind of wire did you call that you get from Lowe's?
Oh, on this one,
Yes.
it's in the electrical department, and they have it on spools, and it's just, they have like all different heavy gauges. So I think they even go down to a 6 gauge. So those of you that are new, if I haven't had this conversation with you, wire is measured in gauges. The bigger the number, the thinner the wire. So for instance, a 30 gauge wire is like a hair, where a 16 gauge, or I believe I used, have to look here to make sure I'm not lying what I did with this one. I used a 14 gauge on this, so it's definitely much thicker. I just happen to have these in spools because I buy my wire through Rio Grande, and I buy it in the big 1 pound put ups. But if I didn't, and I have gone to Lowe's and Home Depot, and I have, different 8 gauge, 10 gauge, 12 gauge, and I'll just buy a couple feet and just hang them. So if you can't always find these heavier gauges at Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby, you have to order those. So if you want a heavy gauge in here, I would say go to Michael's, or go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get a 12 gauge piece if you want. And if they have 14, I don't think they usually have it, but 14 is what I use. But 12 would work perfectly, and get yourself, a foot. And I think it'll set you back a quarter at the most.
One thing, Belinda, you were talking with the wire last time we were together. You were saying, what was it called to check tutorials on YouTube? Was it hand weaving? Was that what it was called?
Yeah, I think it's finger weaving, but
I looked
Claudia,
up one. Yeah, I looked up one, and I did it actually, and it's a completely different kind of finger weaving than the kind that Belinda was talking about.
Okay.
So when I sent you the link, because you said to me, is this it? And I sent you another link. Can you remember what they call finger braiding? Finger braiding.
Okay.
That's called a senior moment. It just came to me. Thank God it came to me. So yeah. And I will show you, because I can't get my camera set up to show you enough. So I will show you a YouTube video next time on it, on the technique when we're doing it, because you need to see the tension, and you're going to work with an arm's length of wire. The longer the wire you can use, the longer your finished chain will be. And I can't get a camera set up to get the picture big enough to show you how to, when it goes with the arm's length out. So I'll just grab a YouTube video and show you the technique for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're good. All right, so,
Linda,
I can show the
Oh.
tool if you want.
okay, so let's pin Marcia or spotlight Marcia.
Okay, sorry, I have a very strange screen. I don't know why my face is very big.
You look lovely.
Scary. Thank you though. Okay, I have several tools. We'll do this. So I have the needle nose plier, or some people call them flat nose, but there's another flat nose that's broader than this. I have two different versions of, let's see, can you see them?
Marcia, wait just a second. For those of you that don't know Marcia, Marcia sold tools and jewelry supplies in her other life. And she is gracious enough to make these available to us. And the problem with purchasing tools, unless you buy them from a good supplier, is you know, the old adage, you get what you pay for. So sometimes you end up with not quality, and Marcia has very good quality that she is gracious enough to pass on to us at unbelievable prices. So I've asked her to share with us what she has. So if you have your own tools, don't worry about it. If not, this is what she has. And then afterwards, we'll let you contact her to set up a time to purchase them if you're interested. So sorry, Marcia, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem. I have, and I sold them to bead stores, so it's their quality. Anyways, I have lots of different tools. Can you see them?
Yes.
So this is a round nose plier. See, my computer is spreading it out and it makes them look really fat, but they're
No.
two different sizes.
It's fine.
Yeah, they don't look bad to us.
Oh, just on my screen. And I have a skinnier one and can you see them?
No, not now.
Let's see, where is it? Oh, up
There
here.
you go. I can see one of them.
Okay, that's one, and here's the other. So one is fatter than the other. So if you need to make a bigger jump ring or a spiral of some sort, one, you might want both, you might want just one. I also have crimpers, and which would close the wire when Belinda is making some of the necklaces or bracelets and you need a crimp tool. This closes the crimp bead. You'll also need a cutter, and I have tweezers. I have 3 different sizes of tweezers. There's a bent nose, and it has a very fine point. One has a locking mechanism, and I misplaced the other one right now. So, and one is a straight one. I have a leather pad, which you may or may not need for this class. I have a lamp. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is, sorry. It's a magnifying light. Clamp it to a table. What else do I have? I don't, right now, I think I'm out of the bench blocks, and my source is out of them right now because of all the tools coming in from China and everything that's locked up in the ports. So I have other things, but they're not really applicable to what's going on in the class this month, this session.
Marcia, there's one thing that I bought from you about a year or two ago, and it's what is it? This pin wheel?
Oh, the pin vise. That's right. I have the pin vise too. Sorry, forgot to show that.
And I'm just setting mine up right now so that I can show them how to twist the wires. So this is, Marcia has those, and hold it up and show them, Marcia.
Okay. It's very small. You can see that that's how long it is.
Excellent.
And I'll put in my phone number. You can call me. I'll be busy until about 2 o'clock, but I'd be glad to talk with you and meet you or whatever you want. So.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and making those available. So I know that takes the stress off of a couple people. So, let's get on to today's program. So I'm going to remove her spotlight and spotlight me.
Belinda, this is Mimi talking.
Yes, Mimi.
Hi, another newbie. Hi, everyone. My question is when we talk about the pin vise, is that the vise you're referring to throughout the syllabus? Oh.
No, the vise I was talking about to hold the wire is the vise like your husband has probably in his workshop, that, big old heavy sucker. Now you can buy little ones. I'm not big on having you go out and spend your money on things you don't need. So if you are going to get into this kind of thing and you want to do more, you can buy little ones for like $25, $35 at Harbor Freight that are really good for working with jewelry. But you don't need to have it for the next project, as long as you can secure your wire some way and hold it down. So like I said, I have a couple of vices because I have to buy things. But I probably, to be honest with you, use it once or twice a year. So it's not a run out and get it. Pin vise that Marcia just showed you is good. It's a tiny little thing. And that's pin. So it holds the pin, or it'll hold the piece of wire, and you can work on it for littler projects. But for the project we're doing next week, you need more security. So then you need to have it held firmly, where this one, you've got to use your hand. So I want to show you, before we start today's project, how to twist the wire. And next week I'll come back, and or not next week, but the following week when we do the other pendant, I'll come back and talk to you about twisting it again for those of you that miss it or want to get a pin vise in between. Now, when you twist wire to get this sort of a look going on here, you have to be able to secure it. And there are a couple things you have to know. You have to either be using a square wire or 2 pieces of round wire. You cannot twist one round wire. The physics of it won't allow you to get a twist in there. So if I said to you, I want you to have an 18 gauge twisted wire, you would put 220 or 222 gauges together and twist them, or get some 18 gauge square wire and twist it. And this is the way you will twist it, whether it's 1 or 2 wires. So this is my square wire here. This is my pin vise. And because I just have to buy things, when we were able to go downtown, if you remember, those of you that went with me on the field trip, I just had to purchase all of these pin vices. There's a kit here that has 4, and apparently one of them made it someplace else. But these will take all different sizes of wires. So I'm going to use this one because it accommodates the wire I have right now. And what you want to do is hold one end of it. Now, if you don't have a pin vise, I think these are well worth. I think I paid $12 for mine. I don't know what Marcia's charging, but I think they're well worth the investment. But if you don't want to spend that, another thing you can do is secure it just with your pliers. You have to hold on tighter, or you can, if you have a hand drill or a drill, power drill, you can secure it in the power drill and then secure this into a doorknob. I don't trust myself with power tools, so I want to keep all my fingers, and I'm not sure power tools and I would make that happen. So I use my pin vise. What I'm going to do is hold one end secure. So if I wasn't using the pin vise, I would tie the end around a doorknob or something to hold it. And here I've got this secured in the end of the tool, and I'm just going to twist it. And when I twist it, the twist is going to move down toward my plier. And I keep twisting until I get the look I want. And I can go as tight or as little. And then I want to make a longer piece because this is what I'm going to use for today's project. So I just keep moving my pliers. And what I'm using as my plier is a chain nose plier. The couple of you new people asked me what's the difference. We have chain nose pliers and we have flat nose pliers. And a flat nose plier isn't tapered like this. This one's tapered toward the points, and it allows me to get in closer. And I have a couple of flat nose pliers that are good for securing things. Like it would be perfect to hold this, but I don't use them nearly as much as I use my chain nose because everything about jewelry is getting in and making it tight and making it neat. And I can't always get my flat nose pliers in enough to make it neat. So while I'm talking, I'm continuing to twist these. These are good. These are Marcia's, so they're wonderful. I love them. You can also get these, which I love well, when I bought them, things go up, so I don't know. At Harbor Freight for $1.99, and which are bent nose, which are really good for getting into places too. So I probably, in the last couple of years, these are the only pliers I use, with a few exceptions. So, and then my round nose that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So those are the 2 pliers I use for this. I now have twisted wire, and we're going to make our pieces. So I'm going to make a small one because I've already made 2 of the big ones. So we're going to make, in essence, giant jump rings. So the jump rings here that we talked about are going to be made the same way that these circles are being made. And I gave you guys on your syllabus the term mandrel, and a couple of you said, I don't know what a mandrel is. Mandrel is anything you could find that'll get you the shape you want. So sometimes we make something square. We look around the house until we find something square. Now, if you've got a lot of money, you can buy mandrels in every shape and color. So for instance, I'm gonna, like I said, make smaller circles. And I have, because I have to buy things, this tool. It's a variation of our bail making tool that I love, my 6-step bail makers. But this is a nice mandrel for giving me 3 smaller circles. They're certainly smaller than these 3 circles. So your choice, as you're going to make these circles right now, is to decide, if you haven't already, what size you want your circles. So I think I used medicine bottles on these, and maybe a spice bottle. But I went around the kitchen and around the house, and said, what do I see that I like? And that was the size I came up with. And I took some, play wire, scrap wire, and tried it out to get the dimensions I wanted. So I think this is just a container I have. It's got pins in it, but I don't know where I originally got the container. I'm going to make my big circle that size. So here's what we're going to do. Take your wire, whether it's your round wire or your twisted wire, and you're just going to bend it around the mandrel. Now, when you bend the wire, especially for those of you that are new, you're better to not make it as tight. You can always tighten it up. So I'm bending this, but I'm not worrying about getting it, right there. So here's my circle. And it's always going to be bigger than the mandrel when they pop off. So once you get it off your mandrel, you can make the adjustment to the size you want. So I'm just kind of moving it a little bit. Now keep in mind, you can distort your circle. So don't go like crazy on it. And then you're just going to trim it, and you're going to trim it so that these ends are flat. So as a reminder, with your flush cutters, so for those of you that are new and this is all Greek to you, we have two types of cutters that we use in jewelry making. We use the flush cutters, and I'll explain those in just a minute, or the double flush. And the double flush, if you look at these up close, these are flat on both sides. So I don't know if you can see that, but they're flat on both sides. My flush cutters are flat on the back side, but they've got a little divot going in here. And these are good and bad at the same time. They are, in my estimation, much more usable than these. So if I'm only going to buy one, I bought these when I first started making jewelry, and I'm not a big fan of these. There are a couple times I use them in life, and the rest of the time I don't mess with them at all. These, the downside is, let's do the positive first. The good side is, because they're tapered down, I can get in closer than the others. And remember, everything is getting close and neat. But the downside is when I cut these, and let's see if I cut them, if I can show you, if the camera will show it enough. When I cut, of course not, it's not going to show it. When I cut, here's what happens. I'll draw it on here. When I cut, if I put the flat side down, so here's my wire, and if I put the flat side of my cutters down, I will get a flat cut, which is what I want. If I cut with my pliers or my cutters the other way, so if I cut with them down, I get a flat wire. If I cut with them this side, so that the upside is flat, my wire will have a little point on the end, which I have to trim off because I want my wires to come together. So when I'm cutting these, if I cut with my double flush, or Jeanette is our genius with the jeweler's saw, and she would probably saw her jump rings. If I cut these right now with this, I will get a nice flat cut, but I don't like the way it distorts the wire. So I'm gonna play with it a little more. I'm gonna cut this side. Now, when I cut this side, this part is flat. So I'm gonna get a nice flat cut over here, and that's good. However, the part that I got rid of has that divot on it because it was the part coming through the other side. So if I want to use this, which I might for jump rings, I have to go back and trim off that little divot. So I have to put the flat side down. Now, when you cut wire, you're at home right now, so you don't have to worry about anybody else, but you do have to worry about your eyes. So if you're not wearing safety glasses, when you cut wire, make sure you put your hand over it so that any little piece doesn't go flying in your eye. So now, even though this is a piece of scrap wire and trash, I have a nice flat end, and I'll use that for the jump ring. I have a nice flat end over here, and I want to cut here with also the flat end. So now watch what happens. If I put it here and cut the end, oops. If I put it here and cut where I want my cut, this side would be flat, and that's my garbage side. And that side will have the divot. So when I cut the second one, I have to reverse my cutters and now put it up there, and I want to cut it so that they come together. And I want to get as close as I can, which is why the jeweler's saw is the best. And then I'm going to just move them back and forth, sort of like a doorknob, so they come together. Now, if they're not coming together the way you want them, you might have a little divot still left, or maybe you weren't holding the cutters completely parallel. So that's when you need to file them. And let's talk a little bit about filing. You can use metal files. You can use a nail file. You can use an emery board. You can use a piece of really fine sandpaper, or well, I can't remember, a couple years ago, we all found these at the Dollar Tree, and they're just sanding blocks for, I think, sanding drywall tape, and they're wonderful. I probably have about 5 or 6 of those, but I've got a little edge. I'll just sand it to make sure it's smooth. And then I'll just work it back and forth. And when it's my jump ring size, I have to do this with my tool, but with this, I can do it with my hands. Now, the camera shows there's that little gap there, and I don't want that gap because, you know, things are going to fall off with that gap. So I'm going to keep working it. And at the same time, I'm going back and forth. I'm never just jerking it, but I'm also moving in just a little bit. And there we are. Then I want to work harden it. So we're going to, if you have a jeweler's block, bench block, which is simply a piece of metal, we're going to hammer it. Now, you can do this too with, I have the twisted wire. If you just did regular round wire, you're going to work harden it, but you could also use your metal hammer and flatten this and get another look. And we'll talk more about that at some other point. But I want to work harden it so that, number one, that stays together without soldering. And number two, it has some strength. So I'm going to take a rubber mallet and I'm going to hit it on the metal. Now, if you don't have a piece of metal, you can take your cutting board for this, not when you're doing texturizing, but for work hardening, and your rolling pin, and just roll over it. But I'm going to use the rubber mallet because I don't want to flatten it. So rubber. If I wanted to flatten it, I would use metal. And I'm just going to work around and make sure that thing is staying together, and I'm work hardening it. And this will be my outer circle. And then I'm going to make 2 more to go inside. And I don't know whether I'm going to do twisted or regular, but that's all we're going to do right now. So I will be quiet and let you make at least your first circle. And if you have questions, yell at me and let me know.
Linda, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to use the pin vise. I've never used a pin vise before. And the wire isn't staying in the pin vise.
Are you using 2 two wires or one square wire?
2 wires.
Two wires. Okay. Take the end of the wire and where's my little piece here that I had that I took off my vise? Well, of course, it's never where I want to find it. Take the end of the wire and where you've got the two together and take your pliers and just make a little horseshoe bend to make it thick enough to fit in your vise. And are you using the right side of your vise? Because here's my pin vise. And when I unscrew the end and pull this baby out, now forgive me if I'm talking to you like you don't know, but I'm not sure we discussed this in class. There's different sizes on each end. So this is the small one here. If I flip this over, it's got a much bigger hole. And the same thing over here, a really big hole. And then if I flip it over, a tiny little hole. So make sure you're using the hole that's close enough to your wire. And then even then, sometimes when there's two of them, they want to slide out. So then if you make that little hook, hopefully it'll hold it in there better.
Okay, I'll try that.
Okay. Excuse me.
So Belinda, this is Nora. We're using 2 14 gauges. Is that correct?
Are you twisting?
Yes, for twisting. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Nora, this is going to be an experiment if you do it, because I've never twisted 2 14 gauges. It's going to be thick, but
Okay, so I'm sorry. What size gauge are we supposed to use for twisting?
usually you're going to go down at least one size, because remember you're doubling up,
Yes.
or
Oh.
2 sizes. So if I were going to twist 2 14 rounds, I would probably go to 2 18 rounds, or maybe an 18 and a 16 round. But notice there's a big maybe and a big question mark on any of that. Try the 14. If you can get it twisted, it would be lovely. And the important part about this outer circle is it does need, the bigger it is, the heftier it needs to be, or it's going to crunch up on you. So
what gauge did you use just now?
on this little guy, this is on this one that was my square one, so I didn't use 2. He's a 16, but he's 16 square, so he's only 1 wire. When you double it up, it doesn't, I'm not the mathematician here, so I can't tell you exactly what's going on, or the physicist, but it doesn't exactly double the gauge, but it does thicken it. Okay, let me know if you have questions or need help.
Well, Linda, I'm just going to kind of have to rewatch this because I don't have the rubber mallet. I don't have a lot of this stuff yet. Amazon let me down. So can I just watch the tape later and try again?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. And if you don't have a rubber mallet, you can just use your like I said, your cutting board and your rolling pin. So when one of the classes that I took years ago, we were in a hotel and the teacher forgot to tell us to bring our tools, what tools we needed. And so she just had us go to the hotel and bring back the little bottle of hand lotion, and we ran it over a piece of wood she had. So for work hardening, all you're doing is just, you're actually tightening the molecules in the metal. And you can do that with a rubber mallet or with a rolling pin.
Thank you. I'm sorry they've decided to cut my grass today, so I'm sorry. I can mute myself. How about that?
Oh, I didn't even hear.
You couldn't hear it?
No. So I just made a smaller jump ring. Boy, it's not round, with that little piece of wire that I had left over.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm such a novice. So what we're gonna do then, I don't even have the pin vise. Michael's let me down. So when I get the pin vise, which maybe I can get from Marcia, I've got a note into her on the chat. Then I go ahead and I start this, and then this is when I do the twisting. So right now I'm doing nothing except watching you. Is that okay? And then I'll watch the video later.
Perfect. All
Okay.
of you, perfect.
Okay.
And in fact, I just made the twisted wire because so many of you had asked about it, but these are not twisted. So I'm just grabbing another piece of my wire that's not square, or do I only have square here? Yeah, I only have square here, but let's do one out of the silver. Here's the round. So let's just make a one out of the silver that's not twisted. So this is, what gauge am I using? 20 gauge. So because this 20 gauge is pretty thin wire, this can't be very big. So I'm going to make a real tiny one on the end of my tool here. If 20 gauge is much bigger than this one, which is, let me grab my ruler here. We're making something that's going to hold. This is 20 gauge wire, and he's just, a little over half an inch, nearly 3/4 of an inch. And he's, nearly 3/4 of an inch. He's too big. What am I trying to say? 20 gauge, I wouldn't go bigger than this. So I'm just making the small one. I'm gonna trim it. This side over here is where my flat part of the cutters are, so I know that part will be flat. Then I want to make sure the flat part of the cutter is over here. So there's my smaller circle. And I would do the same thing. I would make sure that he's closed up, and I would take him to either the cutting board and run my rolling pin over him to work harden him, or put him on my bench block and hit him a few times. And that might be him. So you need the 3 circles. And then we're going to make jump rings. So I'll give you a minute, and I'm going to go grab some more wire, and I'll show you how to make the jump rings. So how are we doing with our circles?
Hey, Belinda, it's Diane. I'm not doing very well. I must have missed something. I have like a 1/4 inch gap. I can't seem to get this thing to look like a jump ring. And I was using what, 16 gauge wire.
Mhm. So, you know, sometimes, Diane, you just have to keep going back and forth with them and pushing in ever so slightly. This big one that I did here, I had a little problem with him initially. So when I finally decided, okay, he wouldn't stay together, what I did is I took him and made him a little smaller and then went back in and cut the one side because apparently, so for instance, let's say, and this guy might be bigger than I want to begin with, so I'll do it with him. So occasionally when you cut, it's really important, and I have a problem with this sometimes myself, that you keep the cutters flat against the wire if you're going to get that flat end. And if you kind of move even a little bit like this, you'll get that little point. So I thought when this guy wouldn't stay together the way I wanted. Now see, he's perfect now, but he wouldn't. So I went back in and said, okay, let's make him just a smidge smaller. And let's go back in and cut one side. So I'm going to hope that that side is flat. It's already cut. And I'm going to cut again on the other one. And then sometimes that's all it takes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's helping.
And there, it's a perfect closure.
Did you say you got the flat wire from Harbor Freight?
No, where were these? The bent nose pliers came from Harbor Freight and my vise.
Okay.
So the bent nose. And Harbor Freight has, you know, there's some controversy about Harbor Freight because people say, you know, they got garbage tools. The old adage, you get what you pay for. These are $1.99. I've had them for nearly 20 years and I love them. These I bought at the same time and they're flush cutters for $1.99 and they're good. They're not as nice as far as I'm concerned as these because these are thinner and I can get in better. And I think I even bought some from Marcia that are probably over at my studio that are even thinner. To me, the thinner I can get, the closer I can get, the better. But for $1.99, these are good. And if you, you know, if you don't know if you like doing this, don't spend a lot of money. Go get the cheap stuff and use it. And then if you decide that you love making jewelry, then you can, you know, you can spend $500 on a pair of cutters if you want. If you want advice on tools, ask Marilyn. Marilyn's our tool aficionado. She has every tool in the universe, right, Marilyn?
Belinda, can I chime in on that when you are, for the new people, when they are buying pliers, to make sure they don't have teeth on the pliers?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you go out, and this is one of the problems with, you know, going out and using garage tools, when you open these up in here and feel, this should be absolutely smooth. If you have anything, so the ones in the garage usually have some teeth in there to help you hold on to whatever it is. We don't want that because it will mar up our wire. In fact, at some projects that we do, we're going to put blue painter's tape on these or dip them in plastic so that they don't scratch our wire. And if you scratch it, it won't take the patina, it won't look as nice, you'll see the scratches. So whatever tools you get, open them up and look and make sure. Thank you, Jeanette. That's really good to remind me to say that.
Belinda, I am still struggling with pin vise. I got this from Marcia. I know it's a wonderful tool, but I finally got my 2 pieces of 18 gauge wire and a tip, and they're holding. But how do you make this, well, I won't call it what I'm thinking, go round and round? Which end am I twisting?
You're holding the wire steady with one hand,
Yeah,
and on the pin vise, you're just twisting it. And I just twist mine. I guess it's away from me, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're consistent. So you're just turning this. You're not turning your end pieces. Those are securing the wire. So you're just turning the tool itself, and it'll
okay.
twist.
I was trying to turn the knob at the end and okay.
Okay,
Real
no,
good.
it's just the tool itself. And just
Yeah.
watch the twist move down toward your pliers.
Okay.
So if you want to do a lot of twisted wire,
Mhm.
get a drill.
Yes, yes.
This is something you have to be a little careful about, but I'll do it outside. And not that it needs to be done outside, but I'll just anchor it to a piece of furniture, like my wire to a piece of furniture. You put
Yep.
the 2 pieces in at the other end of the drill, you clamp it down really good and very gently squeeze on the drill. And before you know it, you could have yards of
Yeah.
twisted wire in seconds. But be
Just
really,
make sure, oh, I'm sorry.
no, that's it.
I was just gonna say, just make sure it's really secure. Otherwise, it'll whip around and hurt somebody.
Sometimes I'll have my husband, like it'll be wrapped around a pencil really securely. You got to make sure it's really anchored around a pencil or something, and he'll hold it taut. And so you can, if you have someone else, but I've done it without another person. But yeah, that end isn't secured and it whips out and hits you, you'll be very unhappy.
You'll be unhappy. I'll be unhappy.
Yeah.
Husband will be unhappy.
I personally like twisted wire, so I will twist, a couple yards at a time so that I have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And in fact, after you twist it, you can even, when I work harden this, if I wanted, there's a really interesting look. If you just, instead of using the rubber mallet, use your metal mallet to flatten, or a metal hammer to flatten out those twists. And it's a really nice look. So twisting is a technique you need to know how to do. And we haven't done a lot of that in class, I know. And
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, whoever interrupted, I didn't mean to. This is Kathy again. Okay, can you just, the picture you're showing right now on the screen of the different rings, can you just like one by one say again what the gauges are from the outside one in? So I like that one, that big one right there. What gauge is that one then?
I believe I used a 16 on this. I have to look back at the syllabus. I can't remember. Did I even put out what I used on it? I think I didn't put in there what I did I? I think I used a 16 on this because that's what I had in the silver.
Gotcha.
The thicker, the better, Kathy.
Okay.
So the thicker the wire, the thicker the gauge, lets you make a bigger circle. So what I'm thinking I want is a smaller one to wear sort of on a choker. So that's where here I'm using thinner wire. But if I wanted to go bigger, I would need even, your trip to Lowe's or Home Depot, if you got a 12 gauge, you could make a really nice bigger one. But if it's too thick, so I think I used a 16 on this because I know I don't have 14 in the silver. And the middle one was an 18. And this one, of course, was pre-done, but I can tell by looking at it. And if any of you are type A and stressed over it, you won't be happy. It's much thicker than this. So it's probably 2 18s twisted or thereabouts. So if you were,
see square wire when I was shopping for stuff.
You didn't see square wire? Yeah.
Square wire at Home Depot?
No, you're not. It's got to be at Joann's or Hobby Lobby or someplace, and you're not going to find it in every gauge. It's pretty much something you order online as you need it. I have purchased, in fact, when I first started making jewelry at Michael's, the square wire in the little put up like this from Michael's or Joann's. But you know, this COVID thing has taken its toll on inventory in the stores. So it wouldn't surprise me if you can't find it anyplace, and you're going to have to twist your own or order it online. And really good resources. If you went to our Facebook page, there's a file there, a folder that has some resources, where to buy things, but online, really good and easy to get are Fire Mountain and also Rio Grande. And Rio, the difference between the two, and I'm oversimplifying this, but Rio works with professional jewelers. So they specialize more in professional tools and huge put-ups. So I have, I wanted to say almost every size wire, and in the different metals, I don't have every size, but I have a number of them. And I buy them from Rio, and I just buy them in the 1 pound put-ups, and I can use them forever. Unless you hate copper, I suggest, if you're new to this, that you get a bunch of copper to play with, because copper is relatively inexpensive and you can make it and throw it away if you don't like it. Don't throw it away, save it, because you can recycle it. But I have a bag of recycled copper that I made something and said, oh, I don't like the way this is. And then also, you know, go to the other colors if you like. So for instance, I have my copper, I'm going to make jump rings, and this is the red brass that I get, the jeweler's red brass from Rio. And it has a, you know, a gold look. It's not gold. If you order their bronze, just a heads up, bronze is a heavier, stiffer metal, so it's going to be harder to work with. And then of course there's Parawire and a couple of others that make the craft wire. And this is generally what you find at Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby.
And how are you spelling Ria?
Rio, it's 2 words, R-I-O, and then Grande, G-R-A-N-D-E. And it's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they're really good about shipping. So you'll get things in just, you know, not hardly any time at all. Don't go there though, unless you're preparing to write a nice check. So I tend to make periodic deposits with them. So.
Linda,
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed since COVID that there seems to be a real problem as far as like wire stock in Michael's, Joann's, even in Hobby Lobby.
Yep. Yeah, I think COVID has taken its toll on inventory in general. You know, when you go to, when I have to admit, I don't get into those stores as often as I used to because of all of this. But when I have gone, there've been shelves that have been empty that never ever were empty before. So it's kind of sad, you know.
Well, you know, I ordered some stuff from Amazon, and they're usually really pretty good. But I had a recent order that was held up forever, and when I went in to find out why, it said that it had been held up in customs in Long Beach. So a lot of that's going on.
Great. Great.
Linda, I have a question. This is Nora.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like I continue to move back and forth. I've already made my circle with the twisted wire.
Mm-hmm.
And I've cut it twice on the ends because it doesn't seem to want to set in together.
Have you filed your ends, Nora?
Yeah, I'll file them again. I've already cut them a couple of times because I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they're completely, but I'm gonna file them again. And they
Yeah.
should just kind of grip together, correct?
Yeah, you want them to, if there's any space at all, when we get ready to attach the jump rings to hold it onto the chain,
Yeah,
that
they'll fall.
jump ring will go right through the hole.
Right, right. Okay, I'm just gonna keep working it.
Keep
then.
working on it. Yeah. Now, also, since we mentioned Harbor Freight, let me point out, if you're there and you have a couple of extra dollars, they have a package of like 5 of the files, and this is the one I could find right here, but they've got a round file and a couple of different size files, and I think there's like 5 of them, and they're like $2.99, and it's really good. I do use my emery board and my nail file, but these files are really good because, again, they're little, and the round ones are really good because if you have to get in a hole. So like when we were doing the metal work in one of the classes, if I cut a hole through it and then I needed to get in and file the center of the hole, the round file lets me do that. So if you're looking at adding to your resources, here's another way to spend money. You are going to curse the day you signed up for this class if you are. Oh, Marilyn's got a big set there that she's showing. Where'd you get those, Marilyn? You're muted.
This is the set I got from Harbor Freight.
You got the bigger set. So do you remember how much those were?
I've had these. I got these years ago, even before I started this class.
Okay. Okay.
But I did have another Harbor Freight question.
Yeah.
Another little tool that I've had for a really long time. I was wondering if this little thing would be heavy enough to use for the finger braiding.
Does it clamp on a table, or is it gonna?
It's got a little. No, but I mean, it's pretty, the bottom part is pretty heavy, and it has clamps where I was thinking maybe I could clamp the wire to, on the end instead of putting it on a board, which would be rather lightweight. So I don't think I'd be able to pull on it as hard as I would on this. I don't know.
Well, try it, because you are going to be pulling it out arm's length to get that tension and get it to move down. So as long as it holds,
Right.
First couple of times I did mine, like I said, I twisted it and I pinned it into my styrofoam. And then a couple times it popped off and I put more pins in and, just really hold it down. And then when I saw on YouTube where somebody said, put it in a vise, it was like, oh yeah. And of course, nobody's doing it, at least I didn't see on YouTube, with wire. One person did it on, which was good, on tied the fibers to the back of a chair, and the chair held it down, and they were able to tension it out. I would hate to tie your wire there, unless it's a chair you don't mind damaging the finish on, because the wire,
Maybe maybe a doorknob.
Or doorknob. Yeah. And this is where, I've got like strange little short arms. And I was envious thinking of some of you with really long arms, because this is where longer is going to be better, because the longer you can make it so that you can stretch it out, the longer your chain's going to be. So I tried at one point to cut my wires really, really long, and your tension just goes to heck.
Actually, I just had a thought. I wonder if using a C-clamp and clamping it to my drafting table might work.
Yeah. So,
I'll have to experiment.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, it may take us using whatever tool you come up with and experimenting, because that's why I'm going to show you a video, because I know I can't set my camera up to show it. So I'm seeing that we just hit the magic 12 o'clock. So let me, I know you're still working on your circles, but let me take you over to my slides and show you how we're going to set this up. In fact, let me make some jump rings and then I'll take you over. So let me go back over to this camera. Whoops. And I'll make some jump rings and then I'll show you how we're going to put it all together. And then if you haven't caught up with us, that's okay, because you'll get it on the video. So here's what we're going to do to make these jump rings that are going to hold it together. If you've made jump rings before, this is repetitive. If not, bear with me. We're going to do the same thing we just did, but we're going to do it on a smaller scale. So I'm going to make mine in different sizes, and only because I want a little bit bigger to go here so that my cord will go through it. I put a little bigger here, and then I've got tiny ones holding it all together. So in essence, what I'm going to have is 3 tiny ones holding the middle wire and the smaller wire together. And then I'm going to take these 3, and you'll see it on my my PowerPoint slide in a minute, and they're going to fit in between these 4. And then I put a big one here and to hold them all together. And then I have to have some way to attach it through my onto my chain. So I put 3 more, and you could do any combination you want. So I'm taking my 18 gauge here. I would not go smaller than 20 to make jump rings. And I like 18 if I'm making them myself. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers. Now, I've been working on mine so long on my round nose pliers, I can eyeball it. But if you're brand new and you're using round nose pliers and you want to make sure that your jump rings are more or less the same size, then what you want to do is take a Sharpie marker and just mark on your tool where you're going to wrap. And this works for any time that you need it to be consistent, because you're going to wrap it one way and then move away and come back and say, oh, I don't know if that's the same size. So this tells me on the one I'm going to make right now, I'm going to wrap right where I made the mark. Now, remember, if you want round and not a flat piece, when you wrap wire, you should be able to see it at the top of your tool, but not feel it. If you can feel it, you're always going to have a little flat piece there. So see it, but not feel it. And we're going to just wrap around and make a circle and keep making a circle. Now, if I go here and wrap up toward the point, you know, these are tapered. So it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. I don't want that. I want to stay right on my line so that they're the same size. So I'm going to wrap down, so to speak, and I keep moving the pre-wrapped part up my pliers until I get a long chain of them the size I want. So I'm not going to have you watch me set and wrap these. But once I get as many as I think I need, then I'm going to cut it. Now remember, flat side of the cutter gives me a flat cut. So my natural instinct was to grab it this way and want to cut it. And that's going to give me a divot on my side right here that I don't want. So I have to think before I cut, rotate my cutters, and make the cut. Now let me get rid of this wire. So I just cut it. And now what I'm going to do is flip my cutters. So right now they were here and they made this flat cut toward my right. But I'm going to flip the cutters and come in and do exactly what you did with your big circle. And it makes a tiny little circle. And then I'm gonna flip my cutters again because now I've got on the side that remains a little divotty guy. I don't know if you can see him. And I'm gonna just trim off a micro piece of that so that he's a flat edge. And then I'm gonna flip my cutters again and come in and make another cut. And now I've still got that little divot because when I cut it this way, there's a divot on the right. So flip my cutters, cut off that little divot. Otherwise, if you've got a divot or it's not a perfectly parallel cut, you're never going to get the two ends to go together. And come in, flip my cutters. And now I've got 3 jump rings. And these will be my small jump rings. And when you open, if you're brand new to jewelry making, or if you haven't heard somebody lecture on jump rings, same thing as when I was working this, I was going back and forth with my hands. Here, you're not going to be able to get your hands in there. So you're going to use your pliers, and I use 2 pairs of pliers. And I'm going to line them up. And there's that little space in there, if I can get it at the top so you can see it. Okay, there's my little space. And there's a 100% guarantee that if I don't close that space, everything will slide right through that little hole. So I can go back and forth. You don't ever want to go like this because that distorts your circle. So you just go back and forth and putting slight pressure on it until they touch. And there's a magic click sound. I don't know if you could hear it, but when they touch, if they're done correctly, they make this nice little pop and you go, yay. So I've got it closed up, and I do that again, sort of to work harden it. And some jewelers will put it on a bench block and hit it to work harden it. But I find moving it back and forth is enough when it's this size. And then of course I have to open it back up to actually be able to use it. So now it's open. And these are not the pieces I want to use together, but I would slide on the 2 pieces and then close it back up. And again, make sure you hear that little click. Now, Jeanette, you saw all your jump rings, right?
No, actually, I was just playing right now. I was sawing them right now, and I was soldering them right now.
Yeah.
Just trying to get the solder going. But
good for you.
It's just playing, but I just do the same thing you do if I'm just doing jump rings like that. Just make sure I'm twisting the cutters so that I'm cutting at the right angle.
Jeanette is our professional jeweler. So if you have questions about soldering and sawing, Jeanette is the lady to talk to. And she does exquisite work. If you've seen her stuff, she's posted on our Facebook. So thank you.
Thank you, but no, I'm a beginner. I'm still learning.
Nah. But if we get to the point maybe where we get back together again, we will do some sawing. And the point I wanted to make here is the sawing, I think, is much easier to get that nice flat on both sides so that they do fit together. So what I found is I can make my own jump rings. You can make your own. I don't saw because I don't have it set up yet. I've got the saw, I've got the blades, I just haven't practiced with it. So in the interim, if I can use a pre-made jump ring, I'm going to use that every time if there's some I can purchase because they are nice and flat. So let me move over to now my slides and show you how they'll go together. I think you will figure this out, but I just want to show you so that if you're at that stage, or at least you get it on the video, you'll be able to finish today's project. So here's your center circle. And here's your, or excuse me, yeah, the center. Here's your middle. And you'll put 3 of your jump rings to hold those 2 together. So the 2 that I was dangling around are held together with the 3.
And are those the small ones or the large?
They're the small jump rings, yeah. But actually, Claudia, it depends on how you designed your circles. So if you want that center circle to be further away from this circle right here, the middle circle, then you'd use bigger jump rings. So the smaller the jump ring, the closer that circle will fit. So it's pretty much your design. And then once you get these 3 on, you're going to add these 4, and they're going to fit right sort of in between. So you want 1 on the outside, 1 between here, 1 here, and another 1 on the outside. And then you're going to bring these 3 or these 4, I can't count, together with, I put a bigger jump ring. It doesn't have to be a bigger jump ring, but I just did it for sort of the look. And then once you bring them together, so now here's an option B. Let me tell you why I did what I did, and then you can decide what you want to do. I put this bigger jump ring here because I liked mimicking the look of these 3 rings down here. But once I do that, mechanically, it's setting this way and I can't get my cord through it. So, because it's going in the wrong direction. So to have a place to put my cord or my chain, then I put 3 more jump rings, and they're more or less a medium-sized jump ring so that they can go around the cord. So because you don't use soldered ones here, you can open them up when you get your cord done next week and slide it on there. But if you don't like this extra ring here, plan B is just to put your 4 right here and your cord will go right there. Now, if that's the case, these are going to have to be bigger jump rings, these 4, because they're going to have to accommodate your cord. And then I did 3 here, up here, only because I like the balance. If you had a thick jump ring, you could get by with 1. You could also just make a split ring, like a keychain, and make 3 wraps. And that would give you, in fact, that is probably going to be a little sturdier than doing 3 separate jump rings, because then you don't have 3 separate cuts where it can slide off. Does that make sense, or would you guys like me to demo what I mean by the 3 split rings? I'm not hearing we need a demo, so I'm assuming you're either overwhelmed, you've turned it off, or you're okay.
I think overwhelmed for me, Belinda. This is Kathy, but demos are always good.
Okay, so let me go back over then and show you what I mean by split rings. So split ring is just a let's get the wire here, Belinda. It's just like a keychain, so it's no big deal. So all I'm going to do is make and I'll make it bigger here on the bigger end so you can see a little bigger. I'm just going to make a coil, like your garage door coil. And you can make it as many or as few as you want, but we in jewelry, we usually like odd numbers. So what do I have going on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm just going to cut it off. And this would be in place of these 3. And what I like about this when I'm using it is here I've got 3, and I've got 3, because I'm not soldering these, 3 potential little things that are going to open up. If I used this, nothing's opening. and you put it on like you do a keychain. So I find if something can go wrong, it generally will on my jewelry. So that's a way to avoid worrying about something happening. So let's go back here. Okay. So where are we confused?
I don't have a clear picture of what the first step is, to be honest with you. And when I looked at the syllabus, to me, everything looked like it was in that antique stuff, antique colors. So I have silver rings and all kinds of different colors. I mean, you could use it for fun, but my point being is I'm not quite sure where I'm starting, what's number one step. Does that make any, I'm sorry, I know that's probably ridiculous, but it's true.
No, number one step for the whole project, or
yeah,
when
you're
you
right.
said the
If I was
antique-
going to go now, I'm going to go watch this video and sit here at my little table and do it. What do you recommend I do in what order? I guess would be the way for me to ask you that.
Okay, excellent question. Back over here. First thing, we get it over here. I would decide what size circles I want and find the mandrel. Then I would decide, am I going to make twisted or plain wire? So, and it works in either way. So if you're going to make twisted, then twist yourself a bunch of wire and then wrap it in the 3 sizes and make your 3 circles. And I would not make the jump rings out of twisted wire that size because it's too tiny and too futzy. If you like twisted jump rings, you can purchase those. And then after you've got the circles and you've worked out how to get them to stay together, closed, which as you see is not a 2-second thing. It takes a little manipulation, a little work. Then take them to whatever you're going to do to work harden them. So either on your jeweler's block and your rubber mallet or on your cutting board and work harden them and then assemble them, put them together with your jump rings. So there's no, in terms of antiquing, this one, the teeny one, because it was purchased twisted, looks antiqued. I'm not sure if it is, or, like I said earlier, I've had it a million years and it could have been sterling that I bought or silver plated and it could just have a natural patina. If you have silver that you're using, or if it's plated, now copper would work too. But if it's just like an aluminum, it won't work. But you could put it in liver of sulfur and put a patina on it. Or we did last session of classes, we used ammonia and got a green verdigris on our pieces. But this piece here is not patinaed, and the chain we're going to make next week is not patinaed. I did buy a thing of Miracle Grow at Walmart the other day, so I'm going to try the Miracle Grow patina for us. So
let me ask you this then, because I think my first one's going to be whatever I've got, and I'll just go with the colors. But when you work hard, the thing that I'm kind of having trouble with is, so you work hard in it so that they'll come together, and then you have to take them back apart to put them all together, and then you got to put them back together again, right? And they should snap again. You showed us with the pliers, but in other words, you harden them, then you're going to take them apart so you can put everybody together, and then okay, got it. Okay,
so then because
okay.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, you go ahead. I'm fine.
Well, I was going to say, because you can't, once you get it all together, you really can't work harden it. So sometimes it's not logical. That it would be nice just to get it all put together and then just hammer at once, but if you tried to do that and you've got these little jump rings on there, you're going to smash up those little jump rings. So we're going to work harden each piece. And then, like you say, you're going to undo what you did, but the work hardening will hold it. So in fact, the harder you work with wire, the longer you work with it. Now, on this project, it's not going to matter, but on, let's see, I think the next pendant we do, if you have to keep doing a lot of working with it, it gets so hard that it's hard to work with. Does that make sense?
It's like the wire starts to get just too soft on you or something?
No,
or
it gets too hard.
too
Yeah.
hard, too brittle.
And-
Okay.
And you can't move it. And then, yeah, and then it goes, it work hardens to a stage, and then it goes to a brittle stage and breaks.
So for me on my amateur hour here, I can just make the 3 different size rings. I don't care if they're twisted or not, because I'll figure that out. That twisting thing means I have to go find a way to vise it, and I don't know about that yet. Okay, so I get my 3 circles that are the 3 different sizes, and then I work hardened. I have to work harden them because I've either made them or I bought them at the store, which is cheating. But let's say I made them from wire and I've work hardened them. Then my next step is to connect them all to each other with the little baby
Jump
rings
rings.
that you made here that look gold to me on my screen. Okay. And then, like you said, then you use the Photoshop, the picture you showed us with the different, with the 4 and the 3s to give it some balance and give them room to move. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So then what? Okay.
And then you're done.
Okay. Well, see, I think I'm making this harder than it is, which of course is my way, but okay. So I've got to go figure out how to make the 3 rings of different sizes. Then I've got to figure out how to, cut them to different sizes and work harden them. And then I've got to connect them with the picture you show of the lines. And then essentially that's it, no matter what I have. I mean, I'll have a completed project. It won't be worthy, but at least I will have had the practice. I think that's where I'm at right now. So thank you, Belinda.
Yeah, and that truly is it. And you guys haven't heard me say this before, so that are new, but the other girls have. Every piece I make, I think I can say this with great confidence, I make at least twice. So I see a piece and I say, okay, let's make it. And it looks good. And then I think, not so much. Let's redo that piece, or you can make it a better way. So for instance, this piece that we just did, I'm making another one in copper. And you noticed when I did the demo on the twisted wire in copper, it's much smaller because I don't have the really, really thick wire that I think I would like. Here. So even though I'm guessing this was either a 16 or a 14, I think it should be thicker. So, and I don't have the silver in that. So I'm going smaller, and so that it looks better. And I'm happy with my copper twisted jump ring ring. He looks much better. So now I've got to make 2 more in the twisted copper to go in there. But it's everything is an experiment, and it's with jewelry, and it's do you like it? And don't be afraid to make it over again. So what we hope to do in class is teach you the technique. And then some of you go crazy, like with the Cellini spirals we saw earlier. And we'll get Yasmin someday to show you her porcelain or her air dried clay that she's gone nuts with, and her Viking knit. And we just
Can we go back to the picture you have of all the rings? Because I've got one last question. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm holding everybody up. Let me shut up. But
you're not.
The big, you've got the big ring, and I see the little tiny one you made there in the middle. That beautiful metal that holds it all together. What is that? How did you do that?
This?
Yeah, the thing that goes around your neck.
That's what we're making next week.
Okay. I thought, gosh, I don't know how she did that. Okay, I'm okay.
This is the weaving we were talking about.
Right. Okay.
For next week. And this was out of the silver, but here was mine that I made out of the copper and the thinner wire.
Oh, good. So all I got to do this time is figure out how to get these rings together in 3 different sizes for next time, correct?
Yeah. And trust me, the other girls will tell you that some of them have projects from 2 years ago they haven't finished. So don't put stress on yourself.
Yeah, cut yourself a lot of slack on that one. I certainly have.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm going to mute myself again.
In fact, the other day I went to go finish a piece only to discover, oh, I already finished it. I didn't even remember finishing it.
Okay, Belinda,
Mhm.
this is Mimi again. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Is copper easier to work with than the
Yes.
silver?
Yes.
Okay.
Copper
ahead.
is the easiest wire, and it's the most inexpensive. So unless, I've had people that I sell my jewelry, and I've had people say, "Oh, I hate copper," and I before I went gray, I was I want to say I was a redhead. I was a dyed redhead,
Yeah,
and the
like
copper,
me.
the
Like
copper looked
mine.
the copper looked gorgeous on me. Now I'm not so much with the color that's changed since COVID. So now I'm going more to the silver, but I used to make everything I wore in copper. And now I'm still going to use it because it's cheap. And if, for instance, these circles that I made, if I don't like them, I can use them for something else, or I don't feel bad about putting them in the scrap bag in copper. And even the silver plated, it's not as expensive as sterling silver, but it's still wire I don't want to waste,
Right.
So I get copper to just play with. And then if I've made it and I like it, and I know I've worked all the bugs out. So let's say I get this and I'm happy with the size of the circle, I'm happy with, then I'll even pull out my sterling or my gold plated and bump up the cost and make it really nice. But I don't want to experiment with the expensive stuff because I'm cheap.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go back and get copper because right now my circles look organic in different shapes rather than round. They started out round and somehow they just didn't want to stay in that shape.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go easier on myself and experiment. Thank you very much. I've learned a lot.
And don't, those of you that are new, don't be so hard on yourself because I'm not going to embarrass anybody in class, and they can speak up if they want. But if I went to everybody in class, myself at the top of the list, we would tell you the first few classes were just horrible. That everything's new. Which tool do you use? How do you control it? And then all of a sudden, like anything else, you seem to get control over the wire until you reach a new project, and then you're back to square one at times. Am I wrong, girls?
No, you're right.
Well, and I think too, some of us were lucky, at least for me, started out in class and you were right there and say, hey, look, this isn't working. I don't understand it. And we were right there together and you could work out whatever issue you had.
Yeah, there are some things like this that are really easier to do, but you'll do fine.
Yeah.
You'll do fine.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. Where is the biggest place to buy the wire? Where would you suggest?
Locally or online?
Either one. Or
Rio
both.
Online or Fire Mountain online.
Okay.
Every place else that you can get it locally because of the COVID inventory thing is iffy about, do they have it? Do they have the size? But if you're gonna, if I were in your shoes and I thought I might enjoy this, after today, you may say, I give up. I don't even want to talk to her again. But if I thought I were going to enjoy doing this, I would go to Rio and I would buy a pound of copper in the 18 gauge, in the 20 gauge, and in the 28 gauge, because the 28 gauge is what we use for weaving a lot. And that would get me through most of the projects. Now, next week's project, that chain, is 26 or 24 if you're going to do it in my size. And I think what I would do is go to Michael's or Joann's, and on the wall, not the spool that, like this, but on the wall, they have this cheap craft wire. I don't have one right here that, is in a round sort of put up. It's just a spiral. And I would get the 26 gauge because they always have that and use that to practice with. And that would make something like this. Now, the downside of that wire is if you get their what looks like silver or copper, you're good. If you get a colored wire, so they have beautiful colors, lime green, blue, red, pink, the color flakes off. So to practice with, I wouldn't waste, it's like $3 for one of those spools, but I wouldn't waste my time on something where, oh, Marilyn's got one.
Marilyn has
So,
it.
Oh,
yeah. And I'd get the copper or the silver look, because it's, and if they have 24 gauge, usually 26 is the one they have, but if they have 24, that would give you the thicker look like this.
Can you pin Marilyn so I can see it a little better?
Yeah, let me get over here.
Thank
and
you.
pin her. Mhm.
Sure. And while you're doing that, so you said to buy from Rio Grande, or did you say Fire the those the 18, the 20, and the 28?
I would the 1 pound ones I would buy from Rio because it's cheaper than Fire Mountain. Fire Mountain has this size put up. They don't have the 1 pound. And what I find with this, and maybe it's just because I make a lot of jewelry. I'm forever needing to replace this size, where the 1 pound, and they run about $15 for a pound. And it seems like I have enough to last me for forever. So they also have the square wire if you want to invest in the square wire. But to be honest with you, I made jewelry for years before I ended up buying the square wire in the pound put up. So how come Marilyn? There's Marilyn. Okay. So Marilyn's spotlighted and she can show you the wire.
Oh. This is from Joann's.
And that's their, what, Hildy and Joe, or, yeah.
Yeah, that's their brand.
Yeah. And it's really good. In fact, when I first started making jewelry, I bought their copper in every gauge they had, and it was just my kind of play stuff.
Thank you. I'll do that. I'm
Thank
just going to
you.
go buy every gauge they got.
Yeah. But be careful if you get the colored. I know the other girls.
Oh no, I'm going to
me
get the
tell
copper.
this.
I've learned that lesson already. The copper in every gauge, and I can probably go to Joann's and get quite a few, and the rest I can get at the on Rio Grande.
Yeah.
Okay.
And try to use your Joann's coupons. Sign up for the Joann's.
Ooh, good tip. Thank you very much.
Your coupons.
Are they
Yeah.
Are they
still
still
doing?
doing? I think they've all stopped. Michael's
I
had
get-
a lot of Joann's.
I
No,
used
no.
a 20% gift.
No,
They have-
Joann's?
With Michael, so,
It's true. Michael sends 20 and 30%, so Joann's might be doing the same thing.
yeah.
I get coupons all the time from
Yeah.
Joann's.
Joann's?
I do.
I got coupons. I used them and saved $37.
Joann's still has coupons. Michael still has coupons, but not as many. But Hobby Lobby no longer has the 40% off coupons. They've done away with that.
Yeah, I knew there was something going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
That's all helpful. Thank you.
Harbor Freight stopped their coupons also.
Yeah.
Belinda, I got to tell you my aha moment when you were talking about, you're showing the one necklace where you never know how long to make it, whether it's too short or too long. And I've been looking for all of my scrap chain to make extenders because I'm running into the same issue and trying to get scrap chain to match the chain that I've made the necklace out of and everything. And then you said about making it out of jump rings, and I'm thinking, oh my God. Why haven't I thought of that? That is a brilliant, that's perfect.
Yeah. Sometimes it's those little things that you don't think of initially, but it's so frustrating to me that I get it the right length, I think. And then I change shirts, that, okay, I want to wear it with a different shirt. And of course, it's too long or too short,
Right.
with a different shirt. So it's like, oh, that sucks. So,
I have a
you
question
know,
about the hammering you did early on. You
Mhm.
used a rubber mallet or rubber hammer,
Mhm.
and you said don't use a regular hammer because you'd get a different look. And that
Mhm.
registered with me. I love the hammered look in jewelry. Is that as simple enough as just using a metal hammer, or is that a whole different technique in another class?
Nope, just use a metal hammer. And there are, ways to texturize, and there are texturizing hammers. But for the most part, for instance, if I took my metal hammer, which I don't have with me, and I took that twisted copper wire, and I hit that, it's a really nice even look. Because the only problem you have to be careful with, and I'm just going to say it a few times probably in class, so bear with me, is when you hammer with a metal hammer, metal on metal, so you've got your jeweler's bench block and your hammer. If you hit where two wires cross, your wires are going to break. So if you've got a twisted wire and you're hammering it, you have to be very careful, and it has to be a thick gauge. So for instance, I make the woven lace pieces. So this piece here, the center part are twisted woven wire. And if I went to hammer that with a metal hammer, they would break. So you have to just be careful where you're doing two wires crossing. Other than that, yeah, I love it. In fact, whatever you're texturizing on, you can get different looks. When I first started taking jewelry classes, I didn't have a bench block, and the teacher said, oh, you have to, hit it on something. So I took it outside and put it on a concrete brick and hit it, and I got the best texture. You just got all this really gorgeous stuff going on in your wire. So it's kind of fun to just take it around outside and see, put it on a brick, put it on the concrete on the driveway, on
I think it would probably
play
look
with it.
best on just a big, thick piece of square wire, not twisted, but just a regular thick piece of square wire.
And yeah, try it.
Conversely to what Belinda was saying, if you want a smoother texture, and this one I learned the hard way. See, I started out with my husband's old hammer from the garage that had lots of dings and divots in it. And so, of course, anything I hammered got automatically texturized. And then I found out that you're supposed to get a new smooth hammer if you want a smoother look on your wire, to make kind of like your own square wire. And so I just went out to, I think it was Dollar Tree or something, and got a cheap brand new hammer. And that worked nicely. And I just now made a nice, smooth, square wired jump ring.
Yep. And conversely, picking up on, you said it, but I want to emphasize it. I have the nice smooth hammer, and then I inherited from my father and father-in-law hammers that Lord only knows what they did with those in their garage. And they make the best texture on the wire. So when I really want a nice texture, I use these dinged up old hammers, and it's fun. We like the hammering. Which brings me to ask the question, because I'm starting to think about the next projects for the next session. Marilyn had asked, and I know Marilyn had considered, I don't know if she did, but taking a class on using the colored pencils on the flat metal and making designs. Were you at all interested in learning that with the Prismacolor? I know Marilyn's nodding her head yes, but let me get so I can actually see the rest of you too. Let's see if we can get any.
Raise your hand up if you think that would be something you would enjoy doing.
Explain it again. What is it?
Would you like to see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have something, Marilyn? Yes. It's so cool. You take a piece of copper, you could do it on anything, but you take the colored pencils and do a design, and then you put the fixative on them so that it stays. and you end up with these really intriguing looks. So I had bought all the stuff and I played with it myself, but I wasn't sure it was something you were interested in. But Marilyn has, I know, a couple of the books, and she sent me information on the woman who was teaching it. And I think it was like $500 for the class, and the class was already full. And so
Oh, it was more than that.
was it? So that piece in the center is, the purple part is done with colored pencils, and then they've stuck it, you know, we did riveting last time, so they've riveted it to the piece on the back.
Cool.
Yeah. It's just a different technique. If you're interested, I can design a project for it. If not, we can find something else. Okay, well, we've gone 10 minutes over. Oh, Marilyn's showing us other
Oh.
things. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Oh,
Wow.
spotlight.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Pretty.
Completely different. I love it when we venture into some really different territory.
Yeah, this is her name is Deb Karash, and she's the one that's like really famous for doing this Prismacolor pencil technique.
And I know some of you are so artistically inclined, you know, I am not, but you are. And I know that you'll be beautiful at it. You'll have gorgeous stuff. So Claudia, I see your hand is up. Is that was you wanted to do it, or was that a, oh, okay, it was a thumbs up. Good. I didn't know if you had a question. Well, I have a 1 o'clock other Zoom class coming up. So I need to sign off for today, but do we have any questions or concerns before we sign?